Hi everybody, my name is Coppens and I am a joint PhD student at Ghent University and Vrije Universiteit Brussel. Thank you for virtually attending my presentation titled 6-Year Follow-up of a Community-Based Fundamental Movement Skill Intervention in Belgian Children. Multi-move is a fundamental movement skill intervention in typically developing children between 3 and 8 years old. And 6 years ago, children participated in the intervention and received a 30-weekly training session of approximately 60 minutes with a focus on fundamental movement skills. As you can see in this figure, the intervention group had higher gain scores in locomotor and object control skills when compared with the children in the control group, showing a medium intervention effect. The aim of this study is to examine the long-term effectiveness of the Multi-Move for Kids program and to study to what extent sex, age, as well as aspects of participation in organized sports are responsible for motor competence improvement over 6 years. Almost 400 children participated in the follow-up study, of which 228 kids participated in the intervention 6 years ago and 171 belonged to the control group. Participants' actual motor competence was measured by using the same test as 6 years ago, which was a TGMD2, and general information about children's participation in organized sports was obtained using sections of the Flemish Physical Activity Questionnaire. Because this information was asked retrospectively, we verified the received information with the governing body overarching all Flemish sports federations, allowing us to check whether or not the children were actually enrolled in organized sports in a period of this research. The outcome of organized sports was threefold. First, we have the years of experience in organized sports at baseline, which was calculated by subtracting the child's starting age in organized sport from the calendar age. Regarding the average number of hours in organized sports participation on a weekly basis during retention, 3 questions related to each year of life were answered by the parents, starting at the age of 2 years up to the current age of the child at a follow-up measurement. With respect to type of sports, the expert's opinion was used to categorize a specific sport in predominantly locomotor or object control-oriented sport or a mixed sport. Here you can see the representation of the latent growth curve models of motor competence measured at 3 time points: T1 at baseline, T2 30 weeks after the intervention, and T3 at follow-up. And we also see baseline age, sex, intervention participation, as well as experience in organized sports as time invariant covariate. Mean weekly amount of sport participation and type of sports were included as time-varying covariates, potentially affecting the slope. The latent intercept is constant for any child across time points as indicated by the fixed values of 1 for the factor loadings. The latent slope represents a child's motor competence trajectory with varying values for the factor loadings, representing the years in between the time points, so a value of 0 at baseline, a value of 0.58 after the intervention, and 6 years later, a value of 6.58. Regarding intervention participation, no significant difference existed between the intervention and control group at baseline. At post-measurements, so 30 weeks after the intervention group outperformed the control group. While there was an overall positive change in both groups during the retention period, the control group seemed to have caught up with their peers from the intervention group, indicating no long-term multi-move effect on motor competence. We didn't find differences between boys and girls in the long term, and when it comes to age, higher TGMD2 scores at baseline were found for older children, and less positive change in motor competence with increase in age was observed. Regarding organized sport participation, 3 different outcomes were examined. At baseline, the more experience in organized sports a child had, the higher the motor competence score at baseline. However, the years of experience in organized sport had no influence on overall motor competence evolution. A positive association was found between motor competence and the amount of hours per week practiced in organized sports. And regarding the type of sport, children practicing predominantly object control oriented sports during retention showed a slightly better evolution in motor competence. We can conclude that there is no long-term multi-move effect on the development of motor competence. It might be that the 30-week intervention was not long or intensive enough to accomplish sustained effects. Since time spent in fundamental movement skills practice is of great importance in improving motor competence, further investigations are needed to determine the optimal characteristics of interventions for long-term success, including program duration and frequency. It is also clear that organized sports participation benefits motor competence development, which is in agreement with previous studies. In addition, our study revealed that the effect of sports participation on long-term motor competence development may depend on the type of sports, which was already suggested in earlier studies. However, more research is needed to understand what type of organized sport participation influences motor competence development and to what extent. This will help further inform policy and practice. Thank you for listening, and you can contact me via email or Twitter. I'm happy to answer your questions. Bye.